So I've never read this to you yet. Read to my students, but not you.
Okay.
Okay, like I said, I'm gonna go as fast as I can. It's a long essay. Okay, so some of the earliest memories I have are ones from the back of a 1993 Ford Taurus wagon, looking out the back window and seeing the night lead to the prison where my father was. The memories of visiting my dad are so distinct: the giant doors, prison guards in uniform, windows with metal grids, my dad's blue shirt and jeans, and the turquoise ice chest we would wheel into share lunch with my dad. Whee. I've had so many unique experiences in my life, but there have always been two that have proven to be a pattern. New experiences, shared experiences, and life-changing experiences are things we all go through in life. But tragedy and triumph continue to shape me as a man and a filmmaker. When my dad came home from prison, things felt normal again. Church service every Wednesday and Sunday, year-round sports like basketball, track, and football. These moments of happiness I view as triumph. My dad made it out of prison and came back home to his family. This was a triumph for me, but this one only lasted so long. Just when things felt normal at home with my family, there were also days or weeks at a time where my dad would be missing from home. As a kid, I would wonder where my dad was. Maybe he was out on a business trip, or maybe he was just visiting family or friends. The harsh reality was that he was out on the streets doing drugs. During these times, my mom would have to take us, me and my brother, to school. She would work during the day and come home to make dinner and get us ready for bed, to do it all over again the next day, not knowing when or where her husband was, or even when he would come home. Growing up, I didn't realize that the tragedy of my dad leaving home for days or weeks at a time forced my mom to triumph and take care of my brother and I alone. The tragedy was only discovered later in life when I was old enough to realize what he really was doing, or what was really going on during those times when my mom would have to also be the father figure in the house. Okay. The moment that my dad would return home, you could feel the weight being lifted off my mom's shoulders to take care of my brother and I. I want you to be better. I want you to be a better man and father than me when you grow up, Matthew. Those were the words that my dad would tell me every time he would come back from his hiatus, and you could see the defeat and grief in his eyes. Those words have always stuck with me even to this day, which is why I have accomplished everything I have and continue to pursue greatness, because I can find fulfillment. I can find fulfillment in it. I can find fulfillment in it for myself, and I know it would make my dad very proud. My dad would always give me lessons of triumph, even when I couldn't understand them at the time. I guess you could call it tough love, the times I was getting yelled at for not completing homework, or the times I would be getting whoopings for ditching class and getting expelled from the 8th grade. With those scoldings, life felt like a tragedy, but in hindsight, they were lessons of triumph that came from love, because my dad was really coaching me to be everything he never got the chance to be. Sirens blaring, red and blue lights flashing brought the car to a slow halt. I could see my dad's frustration as I sat in the passenger seat. I could hear my dad saying to himself, "These white men will never give us black people a break." The police officer asked my dad and I to get out of the car and sit on the curb while he ran the license plates for any violations. The license plate came back normal, but the tags were past due. I can still picture the frustration on my dad's face, yelling at the officer. Me and my son did nothing wrong. He is only 12 years old. They argued back and forth about the tags, but when it was over, the car was towed away and me and my dad were left to walk home. That was the first time I can remember my dad being hurt emotionally and having his dignity stripped away for the color of his skin. Growing up, my dad would always tell me about how the world was going to treat me as a young black man. I did not understand what my dad was trying to prepare me for, but that day, on our walk home, the message he was always telling me started to sink in. Growing up African Growing up African American and Filipino, half-breed, the nickname that friends made up for me and my brother, made my brother and I feel left out at times. To our African American friends, we were not black enough, and to our Filipino friends, we were never Asian or Filipino enough. Being portrayed as never enough to your friends felt like a tragedy at times, but outside of our friends to the world, we were just little light-skinned black kids. Identity has always been something I've struggled with in my life. I now know who I am, and I'm very proud to be half of two very rich in culture and renowned with love ethnicities. The tragedy as a kid growing up feeling confused has grown into triumph now. Nowadays, I feel a deep sense of pride in being that half-breed. After graduating from CSUN with my bachelor's degree in television production, I continued to rewrite the narrative for those born and raised in the Central Valley of California. If you ever visited or drove through Bakersfield or Fresno, you would notice that you are surrounded by agriculture and crop fields. The triumph of holding on to a dream that no one understood or believed in is one that I still fight for today. Being a filmmaker in the Central Valley was truly unheard of when I was growing up. You either worked in the law enforcement or in agriculture. I spent one full year after graduating chasing the ultimate goal and dream of becoming a professional cinematographer for commercials and movies in Los Angeles. In that 1 year, I gained so much knowledge, experience, and made many connections. I truly felt like I was on my way to breaking into the film industry as an up-and-coming DP. Just as momentum was building while living and working in LA, I had to put things on hold and move back home to take care of my father, who was sick with dementia. Moving back home and leaving the film industry was a major setback, but the true tragedy of moving back home was that my dad was regressing and battling with a terminal illness. Walking away from the film industry and all the momentum and progress I was making was never the plan. When I got the call from my mom saying my dad was quickly getting worse and his illness is a terminal illness, I quickly made the decision to move back home and help take care of my dad. Moving back home never felt so abrupt and unsettling. Knowing my dad was slowly losing his normal functions like speaking and communicating, his memories, and his mobility was so hard to see and comprehend. The man who was strong enough to withstand the racism in life, overcome his drug and alcohol addiction, all while doing his best to provide for his family, is now withering away. Just as tragedy struck with my dad and his disease, a triumph had been set in motion with the move back home as well. Before I moved back home, I applied for a high school teaching position in a small city near my hometown. I have always wanted to teach, but at the college level. So applying to this high school position was a great opportunity to get my feet wet with teaching. One of the best parts about this teaching position was that it was a dual enrollment video production. It was for a dual enrollment video production instructor. This is my second year teaching video production, and it's been so incredible teaching everything I learned in college to the kids. Teaching everything from production, pre-production, and post-production has allowed the students to see the entire process of filmmaking and storytelling. I never realized how much fun I would have teaching my passion to students that I have never looked back to the decision in applying for this job. It has been such a pleasure teaching in a city surrounded by agriculture, much like the city I was raised in. I am happy to be the first point of contact for students as a video production instructor. I am the one teacher at my school that introduces storytelling, and it has allowed me to show them and teach them everything I did not learn or even know about when I was in high school. So I mentioned that the class I teach is a dual enrolled class, which means that my class standards and curriculum align with college standards and is the same class offered to students as it is at Fresno City College. Students have an opportunity to receive 3 college units once they pass my class. The tragedy of coming home and having to see my dad go through such a ugly and terrible disease has me more grounded and focused on being that better man he always wanted me to be. I strive for success in my life because I know that if my dad could speak to me, he would express just how proud he is of his son, that he's a teacher and doing everything he can to better himself and also his community. Triumph and tragedy are stories that evoke me and move me to tell stories. In every story that you feel and connect with, it's because you can relate to the character and their struggles and their victories. These are the stories I live to tell, no matter if the story involves two lovers, family feuds, a new adventure, superheroes uniting, a young girl's journey to success, or a documentary on a special someone. Stories of triumph and tragedy will always capture my heart, time, and energy. So those are the stories I aim to tell as a cinematographer and filmmaker.
Very good.
That's okay?
Yes.
So yeah, that was it. Apparently they liked, I don't know, USC liked something about it. So it was different reading it to you than reading it to my students.
Yeah. Personal.
Yeah, very personal.
But that's life.
Yeah.
And you've grown.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very proud of you. And you're not that little kid anymore that lied to me when I asked him, did you do your homework?
Yeah.
Yes, Mom.
I always would lie. That's true.
What kid doesn't?
Yeah, right? Exactly. So thanks to you and Dad for instilling a lot of things that you intentionally did, like being respectful, being responsible, all of those things, and also the things that you guys never did get a chance to teach me, but from what I gather just by watching you guys, has brought me this far in life. And I owe all of my success to you guys. I really do. You guys are my driving force as to why I'm happy with the decisions I make, because you guys taught me how to do it, just by simply walking and living the life that you guys do.
Right. Just always remember that someone is watching you, and they may be a kid out there or a student out there that puts you on a high pedestal. And I think one time one kid said you were his, not hero, but didn't one kid tell you that he really looked up to you?
Yeah. I don't remember exactly which student, but I have had students say that, and it's so hard to believe and take in.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that I attribute that to you guys. Just like you said, when people are always watching, so I picked up a lot of things from you and Dad as a kid. I was always watching, so I think that I now kind of exhibit or show those things as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, good job, Matt.
Yep. I love you, Mom.
Love you.
Okay, thanks. Go get some rice.
Okay. Adios.
All right. See you soon.
All right.
All right, so there it is, my entire acceptance letter to USC. Like I said earlier, and you guys might have heard me say, I read that to my class, and it was a surprise to them because, one, they had no idea I was not coming back next year to teach, and they did not know I was getting accepted into the USC Master's Film Program. So that was my first time reading it to my mom. It was really hard to get through. I'm not going to edit any of that, which is why you guys saw a lot of those fumbles and mistakes. It was different reading it to my mom versus reading it to my students. So I'm just honored and thankful again for getting into such a prestigious program. For those of you that don't know, USC is like literally the #1 film school in the USA. So only 60 students get admitted to this program every year. So I can say that I am one of those 60, and it's just really cool and very rewarding. All of my hard work that I've done, that I've been doing kind of aimlessly, has all led to this one moment and getting into this film program. So I'm just excited to continue to work on films and just learn more and more about filmmaking. So if you guys enjoyed this week's vlog, although it wasn't really a vlog, you know what to do. Go ahead and do a super jump on the like button. Also get subscribed to the YouTube channel, because every Wednesday is a brand new vlog. Again, I'm Matty Bees, the teacher, student, cinematographer, and human being. I'll see you guys in 7 days. Peace. I don't know when that died. Wow.